I'm your host, Sharada Devi, of the Born to Be Free podcast that serves as a bridge between the ancient and the new era, a confluence of opposites where all is seen as sacred and every experience is meant to catapult you into your supreme destiny. Oh, warm welcome. I am Sharada Devi, the host of this new podcast called Born to Be Free. This is my third episode, and I'm going to share with you about my spiritual awakening in India when I was 18 years old. I invite you to subscribe to my channel and follow me if these episodes and the others that I've shared so far have inspired you and you want to dedicate and give time to your spiritual awakening, to discovering your freedom and to live a truly fulfilled and empowered and amazing and magical life. So my last two episodes, the first one was dedicated to discovering that we're actually all seeking freedom in life. So I've shared about the mother desire and what is behind every single desire that every single person has. So you can go and check it out and dive into understanding the nature of desires and discovering what happiness truly is. In my second episode, I talked about how I was 13 years old and I decided to take my life. How I grew up in a privileged country and feeling totally isolated and with so much pain that I didn't know any other way than to end my suffering through taking my life. And I was sharing this story to help everyone see that we're not alone in our suffering. Because I know when I was going through my episodes and my deep suffering in life, I felt so alone, so utterly alone. And the truth is, we're not alone. Even the word alone, it means all, one. We are not alone. We are all here in this together. We're all here to be born, to be free. And my next story that I'm going to share with you now, the continuation, how I was 18 years old and all I could think of is to leave my country. I was in Switzerland and I was recovering from this episode, from this incident where I decided to take my life because I didn't know how to be with my emotions and be with my suffering, and then basically coping and just surviving for many years in Switzerland, following that myth, that competitive myth, that idea that we have to prove ourselves in order to be loved, in order to be validated, in order to be seen. So I survived my teenager time, like I like to call it. And my dad told me that when you're finishing your education, you're free to go. And I took that literally. The day I finished my education, I left. And one of the places I left and went to was India. I went to India and I was mesmerized by this land. It was crazy. It was intense. It was stinky. It had all kinds of beautiful flavors to exotic flavors, but also the very stinky flavors. It was loud. It was full on in every possible way. And I loved it. I loved the chaos. I loved the mass. I loved the people. I loved that everything was just totally out of the ordinary. Everything was extraordinary and everything was just so full on. And a part of me felt like, wow, I found my home. I came to India and I felt like this, I recognize this. This is my home. And I couldn't explain how, but I just felt it. I felt like I come back home. And so I started my journey and I was very blessed. I had a beautiful friend who was with me, who was a little bit older than me and already had traveled in India quite extensively. So she took me under her wings and we traveled to many different places, from Delhi to Rishikesh, to Haridwar, to Parvati Valley, to Manali, to Dharamshala. And there, Dharamshala at that time, like 22 years ago, Baksu, which is now a very big and popular place in Dharamshala. At that time, that Baksu was just tiny, little tiny place, and you had to walk up there. And Baksu, you were already very high. Now you're kind of low. So I was there and just immersing myself into the Indian experience. And being 18 years old, I was open like a sponge And I came with all my luggage, like all the luggage that I've carried with me, that I speak more about in my last 2 episodes. They were with me. I didn't come like with a full heart and with a lot of resources. I came as an 18-year-old girl, being a rebel, having gone through many different traumatic experiences, and feeling quite isolated and lonely in a country where she grew up, coming to India and just like receiving and taking in this new culture fully. So my system at one point got really overwhelmed by the time I arrived in Pushkar. And Pushkar means it's a Brahmana place. It's a place where there are many priests. Many priests live there, and it's a beautiful town. One of my beautiful, most favorite towns in India. It belongs to Rajasthan. And so I was there, and I was mesmerized by the beauty of Rajasthan and the beauty of the temples. And I just totally went into that atmosphere. And I came with a book that I had picked up along my journey, which is called Siddhartha. You may have heard of it. It is written by Hermann Hesse. And that book, when I was 18 years old, it became kind of my Bible. It became like my book, my guide. And I was so inspired by Siddhartha that I imitated him. I did everything that Siddhartha did in this book. He started to meditate, I started to meditate. He started to fast, I started to fast. He started to be in maunam, which means he started to not speak anymore and just be in silence. I started to be in maunam. He started to give away his things. I started to give away my things. So by the end, I was like living, breathing Siddhartha in my own way. And what happened being in Pushkar, I also happened to pick up a virus called Chardia. And so I got really, really sick. My system was overwhelmed and I got really sick. And I was just being with this sickness, and I totally actually embraced being sick in India because of Siddhartha. Like just this book, it gave me so much inner strength that I could kind of embrace this sickness. I was really very, very sick for 2 weeks. It came out of every single possible hole you have in your human body. Things was coming out. Things were coming out. Fluids were coming out. And I was just in bliss. I was like, it's all fine. I was Siddhartha. I was meditating. I knew I'm here to become an enlightened person, because that's what Siddhartha was all about, to become enlightened, to discover the true purpose and true meaning of life. And I felt it. So I could just embrace being sick. And so after 2 weeks, finally, I started to gain my strength again. And it was the first time I was able to leave my house. And so I met this priest on the road, and this beautiful priest, he was a friend of my friend, and he took care of us. And he invited us a few times to his home and just introduced us to his family. And that's India. Like if you go to India, you're welcomed like goddess. Like when you come to someone's home, they embrace you like God. What does that mean? They give you a bath, they give you fresh clothes, they give you kumkum, they put a dot on your forehead that symbolizes that you're a sacred being. They give you maybe even a mala, a beautiful rosary with beads that represents your connection to the divine. They give you food. They just treat you like as the most important being in this whole universe. And so you feel so loved, so welcomed in the Indian culture. And so you feel so loved and so welcome when you are there, because they embrace you. It's part of the culture to treat you as their equal. Because the culture in India is not one of competition and seeing themselves different from everyone else. The Indian culture, the Indian view of life is one of wholeness, one of oneness. What does that mean? It means that you and this, you and the world are one and the same being. That's the view of the Indian culture. That's the view of all earth cultures, of all Aborigine cultures, really, of all the Ur-kult, the Ur cultures. There's a deep understanding that we are one with nature, with the world, we're one with God. There's a knowing and understanding that God is not some being sitting in the clouds with a long beard and deciding between good and bad at the time of death. No. In India, God, Goddess, the divine, the sacred, is in and through everything and everyone. And so if you come as expected or unexpected guest. It's called Atiti Devo Bhava. Bhava means the attitude of Atiti, the unexpected, Devaha, God in the form of the unexpected guest, or Titi Devo Bhava, God in the form of the expected guest. You got to treat them as God. And so you show your love, you show your reverence through food and offerings and clothes and flowers. And the love is, the devotion for life and love is expressed through every gesture and word. And so for me, I was just soaking that all in, because I didn't experience that in Switzerland where I grew up. There I experienced competition. There I experienced, who are you? Like, if you're too nice, something's wrong. Like, if you're not nice, then there's also something wrong with you. And so watch out. Like, the attitude is like, watch out. Like, fear mongering. Anyone, anything could just at any time come after me. Like, that's how I experience my country, basically. I don't know about you, but I know many of my students, they share the same. They didn't feel safe in their own skin, in their own country. So many of us have experienced, and me very deeply, when I came to Asia, and me being half Asian, being Filipina, I did experience this culture already from small onwards, because I had the blessing to go to the Philippines every year and really immerse myself in this culture of oneness. Not that the Philippines still sees it like that. The Philippines have been occupied and converted, and they're all Christians now, mainly. So that's a whole other story for another episode. Going back to India, me coming to India, being embraced, and I was just in bliss. And so after this experience where I got sick and finally recovering and gaining my strength, this priest came and he invited me to meet the sadhus. So what is a sadhu? A sadhu is a being, a person that has dedicated their life to freedom, to God, to goddess, to living a simple life, a life of Tyaga Buddhi, a life where we are ready to give up anything at any time. A person that has deep value for causing least harm to any other person. A sadhu is a person that is a saint, that really has a value to accommodate other people as they are, because they understand that everyone has a background for their behavior, and they do the best they can. So they have compassion for other people, and they would pray for other people's well-being instead of judging them. So the sadhu is really dedicated to the truths of life, the truth being that we are free. We are one whole and complete being. So a sadhu may live in the forest alone with the lions, but a sadhu can also live in the city and live in an apartment in the 20th floor and just live its life, his life, her life, their life, working in a 9-to-5 job. It's possible. Often we have the picture of a sadhu, of that aesthetic, of that person being half naked with a cloth to cover their genitals and living like in the wilderness and eating grass. Maybe that's the picture you get when you hear sadhu, for some of you. For others, we don't have any pictures. But often that's the picture we get, like a sadhu living like a person, like a wild person out in the wilderness. And the truth is a true sadhu is a wise person. Like a true sadhu is a wise person. A wise person means a jnani. A jnani means a person that is wise. What does wise mean? Here, wise means they have understood what they are. Like, they know that they are free. They know they were born to be free. They know they came here to discover their essential wholeness. And they have self-knowledge, basically. That's what it means. They have self-knowledge. They have knowledge of the self being whole and complete and free. And so sadhu is dedicating its time to this truth and to embodying this, to removing all doubts and questions about that, and really living a dharmic life, a life that is in resonance with the law of nature. So in India, there's still sadhus living in the mountains like that, like this picture we have, being half naked and living with the animals and cooking their food on the fire. And So that's India. You can go anywhere and there are many sadhus. But like in any culture or anything, any subject, any topic you inquire, there's a whole range of different kind of people. So here in the same way, these sadhus that I was invited to when I was 18 years old with that priest, there were a bunch of sadhus, like 4 or 5 sadhus, I don't remember like 4 or 5. They were sitting around the fire and they were doing bhang. So bhang is a sacred medicine, actually. It comes from the plant Santa Maria, from marijuana, and it is prepared very specifically into a drink so that you can take that drink and attain altered states of awareness, of consciousness. And really the purpose is it's a healing medicine. It's a medicine. It's here to help us understand and to discover and to have an experience of what we truly are. And so some of you maybe get triggered and say like, ooh, this is bad. But is it really bad? Like I'm inviting you to open our heart, open our mind to new information, right? Like we saw in our other episodes. Can I say I may be wrong? Maybe I was not right. Maybe there is more to life. And maybe there is more to this sacred medicine, to this sacred, also known psychedelics. Nowadays, we have whole research on psychedelics. We have assisted therapy, which is so wonderful. We're discovering that this medicine is not bad. What is the problem is that we didn't know how to handle and take and be with this medicine. We use them as a way to run away from the reality. We use this kind of medicine to numb ourselves or to forget, like for a time being, our problems. So any substance and anything in life, you have 3 choices. You can use it, you can misuse it, or you can abuse it. Which one are you going to choose to use it? Anything can be abused or misused, or we can use it. Social media can be used, it can be abused or misused. Chocolate can be used, it can be misused, it can be abused. Coffee, sugar, sex, anything. And so that's your choice. Like me as a person, I get to choose. Am I going to use what the world has given me, or am I going to abuse it and misuse it? And so the same with these substances. Yes, we've been abusing them. We've been misusing them. We've misunderstood them. We don't know for such a long time. We didn't know what they're really capable of. And there's a whole organization and a culture behind our life and structure that made sure that we're afraid of this kind of substances. Because if we would have known how powerful those substances are, then this organization, corporation, they wouldn't make the money that they are making. If we are suddenly all able to heal ourselves, how is the pharma industry going to survive? So discovering like the truth of what is here in our experience is freedom. And so with that, going now back to my experience where I was introduced to this beautiful bhang and a medicine that was prepared with prayers, a lot of prayers, with sadhus in India on top of the mountain. And it was given to me. And they gave it to me in all devotion. They gave it to me with love, with reverence, with wanting me to understand, to see the truth of my existence, because that's what the sadhus do. Often they show or they can teach you or share with you simply through knowledge. It doesn't have to be through a substance. We can give knowledge or truth in many different ways. And one of the ways is through substances, but there's another way which is through words. So in this case, they wanted to show me another reality through this substance. And I was very young. I was 18 years old. I was just fully diving into Siddhartha. I was sick and I had my whole luggage from my life. And taking this medicine, it changed my life. It changed my life in every possible way you can imagine. It was an awakening. It was a moment where I discovered, it was not one moment, it was weeks and weeks and weeks where I was in a state of oneness, where I understood that I am one with all beings. I knew in that moment that love is the truth. I knew that all the suffering that I had experienced, that I had experienced in my family, with my mom, with my dad, the divorce, the death, the taking my life, the feeling alienated, all that pain, it all felt like it was gone. It wasn't really gone, it all came back, which I will share more about later. But in that moment, I just saw that all this suffering is because we don't know what we truly are. I saw and understood that there's this huge veil, an idea that we are incomplete beings, an idea that we are born separate from God, Goddess, an idea that you and I are different, and that's why we're comparing ourselves all the time, and that are all wrong ideas, wrong notions, wrong judgments. And I saw that the truth is that we are one. We are one. We are love. And that's the essence of us. And so it was an experience. And what happened was that this experience became so big, like so big. It expanded. It took up my whole reality. And I started to see things that I didn't see before. I started to see the suffering in other people. I could recognize their suffering. And all I wanted was to end their suffering. And so what happened is that my experience started to become so big that I started to mix my understanding with the understanding that I had picked up from this book, Siddhartha, and certain things that I had picked up from the book that were not literally, that weren't to be taken literally, that were simply metaphors. Somehow I started to take them as literal. And I started to implement some of these things that I had learned over the last few months into my experience, and my reality started to mix. So what does that mean? That my subjective experience and all these ideas started to mix with the outer reality, with the shared reality. And at one point, I couldn't differentiate anymore. I didn't have a filter anymore. What was mine? What was that? It was just all becoming literally one. So it felt like your thoughts were my thoughts and my thoughts were your thoughts. And it became so big where it was not healthy anymore. My whole system was overwhelmed. I started to miss my sleep. I stopped sleeping basically, and I stopped eating. I gave away a lot of my belongings, and I was just wandering like a sadhu, almost naked in the street, being this enlightened being, because I thought I became enlightened. That's what I thought. And I thought my only purpose now is to be the love that I discovered that I was, to sing and dance and pray and illuminate people. I thought that was now my mission. And so I smile at that because it's so sweet. and I just want to hug this 18-year-old girl and see her huge heart that was really longing to just be free and share love and create world peace. All she wanted was to create world peace. And so I'm embracing her because her desires were genuine. Her view was auspicious. What she experienced was real. But she wasn't ready to really integrate that and understand what she experienced. She didn't understand the experience fully, and she wasn't ready, I wasn't ready to really hold this vision and understand and be able to differentiate what is taken to be literally, what is just a metaphor, how to really integrate this into one's life. My vessel, meaning my body, my mind, my senses were totally overwhelmed. And so what happens is that, like I mentioned, there was no filter anymore. And there was an incapacity to now function in the world. I was not able to really integrate into the world anymore, because what I experienced That was my experience. Nobody experienced what I experienced. The world was going on the same like before. What changed was me. I had a new understanding of life and a new experience, but nobody else did. And so there was such a mix match, such a medley of experiences and happenings that overwhelmed my whole system, that I wasn't able to reintegrate into the world and society, that I was actually brought back from India to Switzerland, and I was sent into a mental hospital, into psychiatry. Because nobody in the West knew how to be with a girl like that. And in India, bless their hearts, the sadhus, they couldn't help me either. Like, they didn't have the background of understanding trauma and psychology and disassociation, and had a whole teaching method and structure and tradition to hold me and help me at that time. There are traditions and there are schools that I discovered afterwards that are capable of holding experience such as the one I've had, and they are capable of helping the person integrate again in a natural, holistic way. More and more we have people and communities and traditions and schools that are able to understand this kind of experiences and understand that it's very important to prepare the person so that the body, the mind, and the whole being is ready to assimilate experiences like that and integrate them and see that these are experiences, which means they come and they will go again. So that there's really a support group that can help people to integrate these kind of experiences in a holistic way. Nowadays we have this available, but it's still quite rare to have access to. So if we do, then that's a blessing. Like, if you have an experience as such, maybe not in that intensity, but some kind of spiritual awakening, and you have a teacher, you have a community, you have a school, they can help you to integrate this experience. Like, that's what I'm doing in my school. I've had people coming, students that have had also this kind of experiences, and I've been able to help them integrate these experiences in a natural, holistic way without taking medicine. But sometimes when these experiences are very, very big, then we actually do need to take medicine. So what I'm sharing here, it's not black and white, and it's from case to case differently. Sometimes the medicine, Western medicine, they are there and they can really help us. So in my case, they sent me back to Switzerland, and I was in a mental hospital for many months, and they knew what they knew to do is to give me medication to shut down my feelings, my emotions, and basically stop my whole motor, my system. And I became like a zombie. Like, I wasn't able to walk, I wasn't able to really speak anymore, I wasn't able to eat. It was horrible. And with that also, my whole experience of oneness and love, it started to go. And it came to a point where I was quite like a rotten vegetable. So I begged my parents to please set me free. Like, I need to get out of this clinic and I need to change this medication because I'm dying in here. And I knew at that time that what I experienced and the intensity of it was overwhelming, and I wouldn't be able to function in the world. So I knew that I needed to integrate and heal again and understand. And so that made sense. And I understood that something was a little bit out of the ordinary. But I also knew without any shred of a doubt that I had experienced the truth. I knew that, even though when I shared it with my doctors, with my family, with the people outside in my life, they didn't understand me. They would just laugh at me, like they thought I was sick and something is wrong and this poor girl and then the shame and all of that. But I knew I experienced the truth. In my heart, I knew I experienced the truth. And I was convinced, I was set on fire. Even though my body was like a rotten vegetable, I was set on fire to discover this truth and to prove it, not to the world, but to myself. I wanted to know the truth. And so I knew that I'm going to find it out. I don't know how, but I knew I will find it out. And when I left the hospital and they changed my medication, the thing they told me was, I will never ever have a normal life anymore. I will be on medication, most probably the rest of my life. And I gotta watch out because it could come back anytime. That's what they told to an 18-year-old girl. How empowering is that? Bless their heart. I'm not judging. They didn't know any better. They didn't have any understanding or any other tools, holistic tools. That's all they knew. But one thing they said was, you have to have a routine. You have to have a routine. And that made sense. I could understand, I need to have a routine to come back to my feet and my legs. And so I decided to leave my country one more time. I knew I wasn't ready for India yet. I knew I'm going to go back to India and find out what happened, but I wasn't ready yet. So I had the blessing to go to South America instead. And I was invited to stay in South America. And I took 5 years of my life to heal myself. I started to study yoga. I started to learn about Ayurveda. I started to learn about the shamanism. I did lots and lots of temazcal, which are sweat lodges. I went out into the La Grande Savannah and climbed the tepuis and hiked in the Amazon. And we created earth clay ovens, made our own food. Like I really went into nature and connected with nature and just really did everything I could to help myself again, help my system to recover its strength, because this medication, they really, like I said, you become a rotten vegetable. So I had to regain my strength again, and yoga and the shamanic world really helped me do that. I didn't take any psychedelics. I stayed away. I had my yoga and my breath work and my Ayurveda. And also I started to work in a foundation, in a Swiss foundation, Swiss Venezuelan foundation. And I started to do all kinds of different events for the different communities there, for the Venezuelan community and the underprivileged community, but also for the high privileged community. So I was just there in service. And I had this beautiful mentor, Elspeth, and she was my mentor, and she was just the biggest heart you can imagine. She was serving her community. She was there to serve, to give food, to share love. And I learned so much from her. I just went under her wing, and together we created all kinds of events. And what happened is that was kind of a routine, right? So I established again a healthy self-ego. Like at that time, in my heart, I knew that I had experienced the truth. But me as the 18-year-old girl, I was quite devastated and also shameful and thought something was still wrong. And, I'm never going to be normal. I will be on medication the rest of my life. Now you're a little bit mentally, like all of that was there in my back head, of course. So being in a foundation and doing social work, it really helped my heart and my ego to grow again and get a more healthy self-esteem, and doing all the holistic work. So 5 years there, I gained my strength. I was strong enough. I ended my offerings there, my work, my volunteer work, and I went back to India. I went back to Pushkar, to that place where I had my awakening. And that story will be for the next time. Did I find my teacher? Did I find answers? Did I find answers to this experience that happened to me? Did I find freedom? All of this question I will share with you in my next episode that I can't wait to share with you. It's going to be very exciting because this story goes back to India and to another beautiful country. And so if you enjoyed this episode, please share with me in the comments. Please write to us. Please subscribe to this channel. And please share this story with others. Maybe it also inspires and helps other people. And I'm sharing these stories to inspire people, to help to inspire people to see that they can live a fulfilled, happy, ecstatic, powerful, amazing, magical life. It's possible no matter the background, no matter where you come from, no matter what you experienced. The truth is you're born to be free. That's the truth. And if you don't follow your heart, if you don't discover that you're free, you're giving up the infinite. You are giving up the infinite because you're not choosing your freedom. And the choice is in your hands. The key is in your hands, in no one else's hand. You're the only one that is responsible and can make you truly happy, no one else. And so if you feel that fire, you're ready to take responsibility for your life, you want to know more about yourself, you're already on a big emotional and spiritual growth, and you want to dive into more growth and deepening of your understanding, so welcome to my community. We have an amazing community for people that are self-responsible, that are here to lead themselves and want to discover their freedom. Thank you so much for being here with me today. Much love and see you next time. From my heart to yours, deepest gratitude for your presence. May you follow your wildest dreams, live your highest purpose, and expand into the infinite, because that's what you are.